everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I'm also known as the Grave Woman, and today in this week's installment of Death at the Movies, we will be discussing the grief and loss expressed in Lego Movie 2. Now, Lego Movie 2 is a very extremely comical and lighthearted movie, but I did recognize some aspects of grief and loss in this movie, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to just talk about them with you all. So the type of grief that I recognized in this movie was not necessarily a grief associated with a death. And as we know, grief is not only limited to being experienced when someone dies. The grief seen in this movie had more to do with the grief that we experience when losing ourselves to pending doom or change in relationships. And the first character that I'd like to discuss is Emmett. Emmett, being his naturally jovial and upbeat self, it makes him a misfit because everything around him and everyone around him is all deep and dark and full of gloom, because something has happened in Bricksburg that's turned everyone to believe that they have to be dark and gloomy in order to live every day. But Emmett, being the character that he is, he's walking around saying everything is awesome, just upbeat, carefree, and it makes him really a misfit in Bricksburg. Everyone tells him that he needs to grow up and that he doesn't understand that in order to survive you have to be bleak, but for some reason something in Emmett just does not allow him to become that way. His friends are kidnapped by Lego Duplo invaders, and in order to get his friends back and become the hero and show that he's grown up and that he can handle tough situations and face, adversity, he sets off on a space mission to rescue them. And on his mission, he meets Rex Dangervest and decides that Rex is the perfect person for him to imitate in order to show that he has all these grown-up qualities. He's so impressed with Rex and everything that he does and the story that he tells, and really just, everything that Rex represents is something that Emmett thinks that he needs to be to fit in. And I think that this is important because sometimes when we're experiencing loss, whether it be a relationship, platonic or romantic, or when we're feeling lonely or facing dark situations, we sometimes feel as if we have to change who we are at our core in order to fit in or be what everyone else around us needs to be. This can even be reflected when you're a mom or a wife trying to take care of a husband or children. Everyone around you is pulling from you, and you feel like you have to give so much of yourself to other people without really taking the time to care for yourself. And before you know it, what happens is that we lose ourselves. And when we lose ourselves, we experience grief internally because we're like, I was once the person that did my makeup every day, or I was the person who used to dress extremely sexy, or I was the person who was the life of the party or went out with my friends every weekend, and now I'm not that person anymore. And I feel as if this movie really reflects a lot of that because a lot of the characters in this movie that we'll get into in just a second, they were once a certain way, but in order to fit into the doom-like disaster or the change in environment, they've taken on different roles that are the opposite of who they really are. And we see that reflected with Emmett when he starts to connect with Rex Dangervest. Taking on someone else's voice and personality and the role that we perceive, or that in this case Emmett perceived that he had to take on to save his friends, he essentially lost himself and ended up taking some very wrong turns that actually led to his friends possibly being lost forever. And I don't want to give away too much of the movie, but it's a really great movie. If you guys have the chance, make sure you check it out because I think it speaks to our personal identities and how we can overcome the grief associated with losing ourselves, which happens naturally throughout life at different stages. The next character that I want to get into is Lucy, who is Emmett's girlfriend. And Lucy comes off as being dark. Her hair is black. She wears these glasses. She's always hooded. She comes off as dark, bleak, mysterious, and just not wanting to be bothered, and kind of like almost a jerk when dealing with Emmett, because she's trying to get him to fit into the environment in which they're experiencing in Bricksburg. So she represents the way that we allow ourselves to let in our environment and situations get into us, and again, change who we are. I think Emmett represents more of like the natural thing that happens to us as individuals when we're trying to fit in. But Lucy represented to me the loss that's experienced when you just allow your environment to overwhelm and take over your personality. And what we learn about Lucy throughout the movie, you know, when different things happen, is that she's actually this character named Wildstyle, whose hair is multicolored pink and purple and blues, and who is actually one of the band members of the song that Emmett is always singing, Everything is Awesome. And that was really comical because throughout the entire movie, you see Lucy criticizing Emmett for perceiving everything as being awesome when the situations and environments are so bleak around them. But come to find out, she's actually the singer of the song Everything is Awesome. And I think that Emmett and Lucy's relationship is a reminder to us to just remain true to who we are and allow those around us that care for us to bring out the parts of our personality that represent who we truly are, despite the circumstances that we're facing and the things that we're going through. And the last character that I want to briefly discuss from the movie Lego Movie 2 is Rex Dangervest, aka Bad Emmett. Now, throughout the film, we actually discover that Rex Dangervest is the bad version of Emmett, who experienced isolation and being left alone, and perceived that isolation and being left alone due to the circumstances surrounding his separation from the group as the group abandoning him. And I think a lot of times when we find ourselves in situations where we're feeling not so connected to those around us because of whatever reasons, we tend to take on a victim role sometimes, instead of saying, you know what, maybe this isolation is due to some changes or some things that are going on being communicated by me. And he allowed his perceived isolation and separation from the group to cause him to become bitter and set on revenge, and that's never a good thing. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Again, my name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I'm also known as the Grave Woman. If you have any suggestions, or if you've seen the movies that I discussed, I'd like to hear what you thought and how you see grief and loss being portrayed in the movies that are being released in television shows or any other forms of media, whether they're related directly to death or not. I think grief can be expressed and stimulated in so many ways, even those ways outside of death. So leave your comments, messages, and suggestions below in the comment box. I look forward to communicating with you guys here in the comments. Live life, love hard, and I'll see you next time.